Halo guys, good morning everybody. Welcome back to my channel at Lukas Bagus. Di vlog gue kali ini gue bakal ngeliput soal keseruan gue ngikutin seminarnya G-Expo. Seperti apa keseruannya? Ikutin gue terus ya, stay tune. Oke guys, sekarang udah pukul 5 pagi dan jam setengah 8 nanti gue bakal absen. Dan sebelum absen, gue seperti biasa mau nyarap dulu guys. Jadi stay tune terus ya, don't go anywhere. Gue mau beli roti dulu sih kayaknya, soalnya masih pagi banget dan belum ada yang buka. Masih pagi, jadi gue nyalain flash karena masih gelap banget. Gue takut kalian nggak bisa lihat wajah gue karena ketutupan, kayak masih gelap-gelap gitu. Oke guys, ini bentar lagi gue mau nyampe Indomaret. Sampai ketemu nanti.
Approach allows us to bring together the best minds, the right resources, and the most innovative solution to serve people of Indonesia more effectively. Our responsibility to the nation is clear. We must ensure the disaster response mechanism are not only robust and efficient but also sustainable. It's just only about facing today's challenges. It's about preparing for tomorrow's. And together we can build systems that safeguard our communities, strengthen our resilience, and sets the foundation for a safer and more secure future. One of the keys to tackling disaster management is sustainable resilience. This concept, championed at the Global Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction 2022 and reaffirmed through the ASEAN Leader Declaration for Sustainable Resilience in 2023 in ASEAN Summits, is best
guides our approach in reducing global greenhouse gases, global greenhouse emissions, and helping our partner countries build their resilience to climate change. The climate strategy draws on USAID's strengths, such as our global presence, our long experience in many of our partner countries, and the breadth of our technical and development expertise. The core mandate of USAID's humanitarian activities includes responding to climate disasters and challenges, supporting the most vulnerable communities and individuals to withstand or recover from shocks. And this includes disaster risk reduction, climate adaptation activities, and resilience. To support these objectives, USAID is working to incorporate eco-friendly design principles into emergency shelters and structures, and this approach includes using sustainable building materials, improving waste management systems, and designing structures that are resilient to extreme weather events. One example in our initiative is to use recycled plastic in shelter-grade tarpaulins, and this will be addressed in more detail today. Another USAID priority is localization. That's why we are partnering with organizations like Global Shelter Cluster to increase locally led action to vulnerable communities to help reduce the risks and impacts of climate change. To ensure the sustainability of our programs, USAID prioritizes community engagement and capacity building, and we're working closely with those local communities to understand their needs, provide training on sustainable practices, and trust them to be good stewards of our environment. In recent years, the humanitarian community has recognized the value of the private sector as a strategic partner in humanitarian response. And so, during these disasters, the private sector can deploy its supply chain, management expertise, technology, and capacities to address humanitarian challenges. By coordinating with the private sector, we can reduce response times, enhance the effectiveness of our relief operations, and lower operational costs.
7.8 million tons of plastic waste in Indonesia, and we're talking about around a fifth or a fourth of that dumping into the sea, which means that every day we're talking about 100 garbage trucks, throwing the plastic waste into the sea. So we are really in the very, very alarming situations. However, we are now here, we're talking about how we are going to do and trying to see that humanitarian could really play a part in greening and diversifying of humanitarian supply chains, and we're glad to have two speakers. The first is our speaker, one of the speakers, I'm sorry to say that, not only the speakers, and later on, one of the speakers. There will be three speakers. The first is Pablo Torres. Thank you for being with us now. We are going to see this. He's going to share about the global efforts and progress of greening humanitarian supply chains from USAID. And then we're talking from another angle from Indonesia, Mas Iqbal from USAID EXA, and that means he's going to share something about. And do I speak English all the time or bahasa Indonesia? Okay, yeah. He's going to share something about the Indonesian perspective, and then also Joe Zavales is going to share virtually about what they have been done and then what they're going to do in trying to handle this topic of greening and diversifying of humanitarian supply chains. So all of us here who are here, if many of us working in humanitarian works, we could see something that we could at least improve how we could do, not only to help the people during the emergency response, not only try to say something about disaster risk reductions, but we could also share our concern on the waste. So greening and diversifying is something that is our concern. Without further ado, I would like to give these times to Pablo Torres. Time is yours. You can be there or here, anywhere.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
So I'm going to do the presentation. Okay, thank you. All right. So before I start, I just want to say thank you very much for the invitation. This is really a privilege to be here and speaking to all of you. I work on the Supply Chain Management Division of USAID DHA in Washington, D.C. So it's really a privilege to be invited to this event and speak a little bit about diversifying, greening supply chain initiatives globally from a donor perspective and also humanitarian partners. And before I actually jump on the presentation here, I just want to share just a little bit like of an experience that I had. Previous to my work with USAID, I used to work as well in the humanitarian sector with some NGOs in Africa, Latin America. And about 6.5 years ago, more or less, I approached one of my senior managers, one of these organizations. I said, hey, listen, I mean, we deal so many relief supplies, we've been delivering so many things. Can we do something about the environment, like some less plastics, or just calculating the greenhouse gas emissions? And the response from the senior manager, who's been working in the humanitarian sector for almost like 40 years, his response was like, why? I mean, we're already saving the world. So why have to really go to the effort of greening? Like, it's okay, it's already enough. We're already doing humanitarian work, we're already saving people's lives. and that's okay. And I got so frustrated. I got so frustrated, but also the fact that it motivated me to one day to start pushing the agenda of like green supply chains because it is needed. So why greening? Okay, you can jump to the next one. How to? Okay. Why greening supply chains? Okay, and I know we have a lot of commercial from the private sector organizations here, and I know and that the most important part for you is profit. You have to make money, and that's understandable from a development and humanitarian sector. That's completely okay. From the humanitarian sector, what we have is do no harm, right? We cannot actually do a distribution or bring a lot of relief supplies, buy a lot of stuff, and bring it and make it another disaster. So where we have to meet on your profit and do no harm, that is the common language. And that is where supply chain logistics, and even though we speak almost exactly the same language in terms of transportation and warehousing, procurement, that common understanding of where we have to find the solutions of diversifying more greening options, that's the most important part. So, next slide please. So, can you go back please? 2 slides. No, it's okay. So, like as I was saying, the humanitarian sector is not different from the private sector. Okay, when it comes down to logistics, supply chain. Okay, and these are the core functions and characteristics of the humanitarian sector. This is, even though there are many of donors out there, many humanitarian organizations, when it comes down to supply chain logistics, this is what our core functions and characteristics are. And basically it's procurement, transportation, warehousing, and coordination. And why I mention this is this, because when it comes down to our interaction.
Plastik industri di Indonesia, kalau teman-teman lihat di sini pada dasarnya industri daur ulang itu memiliki 2 ciri. Pertama adalah didominasi oleh teman-teman kelas kecil dan menengah. Biasanya ada dari UMKM, dari pemulung, dari bank sampah ataupun komunitas. Yang kedua adalah Indonesia memiliki 4 juta orang atau lebih dari 4 juta orang yang berkecimpung di industri daur ulang, tapi didominasi oleh segi informal. Sehingga mengapa kalau kita bisa soal sampah di Indonesia, datanya masih sedikit abu-abu karena kita rely kepada industri yang kecil dan juga informal. Dalam 5 tahun terakhir, baik waste management ataupun recycling industri di Indonesia mengalami peningkatan yang signifikan dari segi infrastruktur, segi teknologi, segi collection rate-nya menaik, recycling rate-nya menaik. Jadi ini adalah suatu pencapaian besar dari Indonesia untuk menangani masalah sampah. Tapi melihat dari sekarang pun recycling rate di Indonesia masih belum sempurna. Kalau di perkotaan sudah tinggi di atas 80%, tapi kalau di kabupaten dan di desa masih di bawah 50%. Dan secara nasional tingkat daur ulang pun masih kurang baik, masih di bawah 20%. Tapi sebenarnya itu adalah potensi bahwa industri daur ulang memiliki potensi yang besar. Dari skema ini kita lihat bahwa sampah yang kita hasilkan sehari-hari akan diambil oleh berbagai macam pihak. Kalau di Indonesia, pihak yang paling banyak mengambil sampah adalah pemerintah, sekitar 60% sampah diangkut oleh pemerintah. Namun pemerintah biasanya masih memakai sistem yang konvensional, yaitu sistem collect, transport, dan dispose. Jadi ujung-ujungnya hanya akan dikirim ke TPA saja. Walaupun sekarang kita udah punya sesuatu seperti TPS terpadu, TPS 3R, sudah ada inisiasi untuk memilah sampah supaya masuk ke pusat daur ulang. Nah, tapi di 5 tahun terakhir ada fenomena baru, jadi kenaikan bank sampah dan juga startup daur ulang. Di 2 skema ini, sampah yang diangkut oleh bank sampah dan waste management startup encourage masyarakat untuk melakukan pemilahan sampah. Nah, jadi kunci mengapa recycling rate di Indonesia masih rendah karena masih jarang teman-teman semua di sini juga ya yang membuang sampah tanpa melakukan pemilahan. Nah,
lihat dan didengarkan sama teman-teman Bapak Ibu ada di sini. Oke. Sebelumnya apalagi ya? Saya mau menjelaskan tentang Pertabi. Pertabi itu perkumpulan tenaga ahli alat berat Indonesia, di mana kita semua yang ada di sini ikut join untuk alat berat di Indonesia. Dan selanjutnya kemudian kita ke pembicara ya. Oke. Kita akan ada 3 pembicara, yaitu kepada Bapak Ahmad Hidayat selaku Dewan Pakarnya Pertabi. Monggo Pak. Waktu dan tempat dipersilakan. Oke. Monggo Pak, silakan duduk dulu. Pak Ahmad di sini aja. Oke, biar tengah-tengah. Kemudian kepada Pak Hendra Wijaya, Procurement Manager dari PT Hilcon Jaya Sakti. Waktu dan tempat disilakan Bapak. Oke, monggo Pak. Oke, silakan Bapak. Dan yang ketiga speakernya yaitu dari Pak Friendly, Direktur Berkat Anugerah Perkasa. Waktu dan tempat dipersilakan. Oke, monggo Pak. Sip. Bapak izin, hari ini kita ada seminar buat Bapak Ibu yang ada hari ini di Heavy Equipment hari ini. Sebelumnya saya lupa untuk menjelaskan tentang temanya, yaitu Improving Production Target Through Earth Moving Tire Selection. Jadi intinya kita fokus ke ban. Jadi mungkin nanti dari pembicara, dari pakar-pakar yang ada di sini kita gali, dan nanti waktu Q&A-nya nanti setelah mereka memaparkan materinya tersebut. Oke?
Events, Expo, and Conference ini adalah suatu upaya kita mengangkat semangat industrialisasi kebencanaan. Jadi selain kita mengekspo atau kita harus bicara end-to-end dari sains teknologi menjadi suatu industrialisasi, sekaligus di sini kita sharing knowledge. Ya, kita banyak pengalaman-pengalaman yang seringkali itu berbagi ilmu pengetahuannya lewat mana dan literasinya apa yang harus kita angkat di sini. Saya rasa ini menjadi momentum kita bisa melihat bahwa kesempatan ini adalah penyelenggaraan Adexco yang ketiga, dan kali ini kita bisa cukup besar karena bareng dengan Pamerindo dan sekaligus bersamaan dengan Indonesian Energy and Engineering Series. Jadi kelihatan mungkin bagi Bapak Ibu teman-teman yang hadir bisa melihat apa hubungannya dengan kebencanaan. Pasti ada, dari mulai pra, saat, dan pasca. Industri kita memang harus siap untuk mendukung semua ini. Jadi end-to-end kita tidak bisa lagi menjadikan suatu ketergantungan dengan negara-negara lain yang produksinya ada di luar dan kita harus impor. Nah ini.
Tetapi dalam konteks itu tentu posisi IKLE di mana sebetulnya? Tentu inklusivitas itu juga harus kita pandang sebagai sebuah kebutuhan yang harus terus kita wujudkan, ya. Sehingga kehadiran kami akan kami sedikit sharing siapa itu IKLE, ya. Ini next, ya. Mohon maaf, sedikit perkenalan. Kami itu punya kantor global di Jerman, di Bonn. Ini sebenarnya sebuah asosiasi, ya, asosiasi perkotaan global dengan anggota yang sudah lebih dari 2.500 pemerintah lokal, baik kalau di Indonesia, provinsi, kabupaten, dan kota. Kemudian ada 24 kantor di seluruh dunia sampai hari ini dan melibatkan lebih dari 125 negara. Sehingga mitra kita luar biasa, Bapak Ibu sekalian, kalau kita ingin berkolaborasi ke depan. Next. Kemudian sebarannya, Bapak Ibu, kita lihat tentu sebelah kanan atau kiri. Kalau di Bapak sebelah kanan, kami menjadi bagian dari regional ASEAN. Ada Filipina itu sebagai kantor regional IKLE ASEAN. Kemudian ada Indonesia, kemudian Thailand, dan Malaysia, ya. Dan kita akan terus mendorong secara luas lagi. Namun kegiatan kita tidak terbatas di ASEAN, meskipun Indonesia. Contohnya kami punya program bersama dengan IKLE Asia Selatan itu adalah India, kemudian juga iklim Asia, Cina daratan ya. Itu yang sedang kita kerjakan. Mungkin pernah dengar namanya program Urban Shift ya, Urban Shift itu melibatkan 5 kota percontohan di Indonesia. Kemudian dikoordinasikan secara nasional oleh Badan Perencanaan Pembangunan Nasional atau Bappenas, ini sebagai contoh. Kemudian beberapa aktivitas kami, program kami selama ini baik yang sudah lewat maupun yang sedang berjalan, bisa kita lihat di sini. Yang unik itu adalah tentang energi terbarukan yang sedang ngetren ya. Mungkin Bapak Ibu mengikuti isu-isu terkait dengan apa namanya.
Oke guys, itu dia keseruan vlog gue kali ini. Dan jika kalian suka sama video ini, please tulis kolom komentar di bawah ini. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and share sebanyak-banyaknya ke teman kalian. And see you sampai jumpa di vlog gue selanjutnya. Bye.